What's up, everyone? This is Silver Slayer, and welcome to your daily silver stacking video. Thank you for tuning in. Silver price 2022. Here's how silver can outperform gold as it plays catch up next year. The year 2022, only a couple days away. And guess what? Anyone who likes this video will be blessed with lots and lots of silver next year. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know if you win one of my giveaways, if you strike the lottery, you find some silver, under a bush somewhere. I don't know, but all I know is if you like this video, you will be a lucky silver stacker next year. So make sure you like the video. Make sure you're subscribed because 2022 is going to be a banger. I have a lot of stuff planned for the next year. I'm going to be taking this channel to a whole different level. You do not want to miss it. Trust me. Giveaways will be coming back. Lots of different stuff. I hope you're in for the ride because this is my job to entertain you guys, make educational, informational videos to keep you in the loop. So this article is talking about how silver can play catch up, and as it should. Gold already exploded, broke past $2,000 an ounce, the highest price gold has ever been throughout the history of precious metal prices. Silver, though, it wasn't even half of the price when gold broke past 2,000, and silver still hasn't really rallied and followed that mimic that gold does. So we know that silver push, that rally is still coming, and the longer it takes, in my opinion, the stronger it's going to be. It's like a volcano; the magma's still building up, and then when it explodes, it's ginormous, astronomical. And given the circumstances with the dollar index, given, the next couple of years, I could see this blowing far past a $2,000 gold price, breaking through all-time highs. So let's look at this article, how silver is going to play catch up as it should, meaning the gold to silver ratio will also be lowering. That's something to look at. A lot of people overlook the gold to silver ratio, but that is a perfect tool to judge or calculate whether gold's the better buy or silver is the better buy. So let's jump into this. Let's see what they have to say. I definitely like this article, and you'll see why in a second. I chose this one on purpose. So let's jump into it. So there have been many questions surrounding gold and silver's performance in 2021, but analysts remain optimistic, stating that silver can outperform gold once the bull market kicks off in 2022. Now, I made a video yesterday, or maybe it was earlier today, it was yesterday. There's two different articles. One was talking about how silver is going to be bearish in 2022, and the other article was talking about how silver is going to be bullish in the year 2022. And those articles were only written 2 days apart from each other. You see what I'm saying? Information you get off the internet, you have to pick and choose, take with a grain of salt, because one article could be mentioning something completely different than the other, pitching a completely different bipolar case. So let's say the one person only reads the article that silver is going to be bearish in 2022. So in their mind, they're thinking, oh, silver's not going to do much next year. But then let's say one person only read this silver is going to be bullish in 2022. In that mind, that person's going to be thinking silver's going to take off next year. So these two different people have two completely different perspectives, even though the information written was only 2 days apart. You have to be careful. So that's why we have to break down both sides of the coin, pun intended, and we got to really look at this. And you got to remember, it's all speculation. A wrench could get thrown in next year to take things way out of left field. So both silver and gold had an uneventful year. Silver last trading down 13.5% year to date, and gold down 4.8%. So silver had no life of its own this year, fluctuating merely in gold's slipstream. And I like how they said silver had no life of its own. I swear that term came from me. Like I'm not even kidding. For years I've been saying silver is going to take on a life of its own apart from gold. But literally I use that term, life of its own. So it's funny that they used that. I doubt it's from me, probably just coincidence, but I like that they put it that way, because silver has always been attached with gold, gold's little brother, right? Poor man's gold, yada yada. And it makes sense. Gold and silver prices move almost identical, but I don't know why, because they're used for two completely different things. So anyways, on balance, it suffered disproportionately high losses as compared with gold. And as a result, the gold to silver ratio climbed from a good 70 at the beginning of the year to now 80. So for next year, analysts are not discouraged, noting that the bear sentiment around precious metals is on the cusp of shifting, with the technical charts looking healthy and silver trading cheaply relative to gold. And silver is a hybrid. It's an inflation hedge, but also an industrial metal. You have to remember that. And it's not unusual for silver to get dragged around by gold, right? Silver is more volatile because silver is a much smaller market, much smaller than gold. It is not unusual for silver to get dragged around by gold. That's not unusual. So if you want an idea of where silver's going to go, look at what gold's doing. Well, let's look up here. Precious metals across the board are in the red. Right now, gold's 1800, silver's 2284, platinum 967, palladium 1923. So silver prices collapsed in the first quarter of 2020. We saw effectively a once in a century event where the gold to silver ratio was over 110, right? That's not normal. That is not normal, folks. That's actually, that it never happened before. It actually was 125 to 1. That is not normal whatsoever. And when it was there, silver was $11. I was telling people, look, silver is about to dramatically outperform gold because this ratio is going to correct. And when it does, silver, when the ratio lowers, that means silver's outperforming gold. So when the ratio started going down, that meant silver was beating gold, was performing better. And now it's down to around 80 to 1. So you can see that silver over the last couple of years has been astronomically outperforming gold. So analysts said investors would need to see reversal of the main headwinds holding gold and silver back, including US dollar, real yield, strong economic growth, and the idea that inflation is transitory. And many thought 2021 would have been the year, but we also, and I'm going to stop right there, and that's because there's also price manipulation. There's also uncertain times. Yes, on paper, it would have looked like silver should explode, and technically it should have, but there's also things going on behind the scenes that not a lot of people incorporate or think it has enough pull on the markets, but it does. It does. That's held gold and silver back, and the US dollar index is around 8%. Real yields also rose this year. Economic growth beat expectations, and the market was convinced that inflation was transitory only until 2 months ago. Even now, the market is expecting inflation to return closer to 3% within the next 5 years. The market is currently pricing a fairly aggressive Fed taper, 3 rate hikes in 2022, they said 4, and inflation closer to 2.5% rather than 6.5% in 5 years from now. But gold has a history of performing well once the Fed commences a rate hike cycle, and silver follows gold. So it wouldn't surprise me to see if gold bottomed and started to move higher once the Fed completes its taper faster than expected and moves to raise rates. But there's always that if they use words like expect. We expect to, and that's just an assumption. That's what they're hoping for, but 9 times out of 10 that doesn't happen. Is the weatherman always correct? No. Also, given how equity markets are priced, the next decade might not be as lucrative for the traditional 60-40 portfolio allocation. It's almost inconceivable that those strategies will continue to return what they have over the last 10 years. Even investment managers that run strategies like that are out telling their clients that the next decade is probably not going to be so rewarding for mainstream financial assets. But keyword is mainstream. That's stocks, right? Precious metals is not mainstream. Precious metals we're the rebels, right? We are going against the dollar. We're going against a centralized system. We're taking the power away from them and putting it into our own hands. They cannot control us. That's why they don't want us to invest in the silver. That's why they're going to push gold and silver as this tinfoil hat, more SHTF, right? They're going to push that narrative more than, and you can see why they're also going to glorify stocks, because silver is a direct threat to the dollar. After a year of underperformance, investors could turn their attention back to silver next year. And that's certainly the catch-up story built in there. It has underperformed gold to date, and you'll find some switching by investors into the silver market as a consequence of that. The gold to silver ratio also points towards potential outperformance. The very fact fact that the gold to silver ratio is at roughly 80 to 1, that alone suggests that if gold is going to rise, silver at the very least is going to come along for the ride and quite likely outperform gold. Silver also benefits if commodities do well. If economies perform relatively strongly, it could benefit from an industrial perspective and the whole ESG transition that's taking place in the economy. So that shows and that explains and that tells silver is a win-win situation. Whether the economy is in good or bad shape, silver can benefit. Gold only benefits when the economy is in bad shape. Silver is the best of both worlds. Right now, silver is on sale because the gold to silver ratio trades near 80 to 1. 80 to 1. And to put that in perspective, the average in the modern era has been between 40 and 50 to 1. So in simple terms, historically, silver is extremely underpriced compared to gold, and at some point you should expect that gap to close. Now this does translate into the industrial component. Silver's price action suffered in 2021 partly because of supply bottlenecks and significantly increased energy costs. And remember, when you're trying to distribute silver across the world with so many boundaries and border closings, you could see how hard that could be in a lot of countries. Not only that, but companies rely on silver. But if it's already scarce and it's hard to distribute it around the world, these companies can't get it. You could see why and how the U.S. Mint could have a supply shortage, even though they're only producing 13 million ounces. You could see how that could happen. And we get a glimpse of the severity of that happening and why these premiums are so high. So the industrial component of the silver market will tend to benefit more against a macro backdrop, which is still resulting in above trend growth on a global basis, even though that's easing back from some of the growth rates we saw this year. But certainly it's still a positive economic story. Silver can hold up relatively well off the back of industrial component as opposed to gold over the next 12 months, right? So silver, everyone says silver is a riskier version of gold, but I don't see how they're saying that. Is it riskier just because it's more volatile, because it hits higher highs and lower lows? I mean, yes, gold drops 10%, silver's going to drop 15%, but when you're looking at a precious metal, a safe haven, you can't say a safe haven is risky. That's contradicting. So I don't look at it as a riskier version. I don't look at it as any type of riskier, I guess, sentiment when you're looking at a precious metal compared to stocks or crypto. This attribute to strong industrial demand, which is benefiting from structural factors in addition to the continued post recovery. These include electrification, 5G, technology, commitment to governments and invest in green infrastructure, and significantly more silver is used in electric vehicles than in cars with internal combustion engines. This shift towards more solar energy is another critical driver that could take silver prices higher. So you could see how there's so many different things that could be pushing silver and will be pushing silver higher. Analyst price forecasts for the next year vary between $24 and $30 an ounce, depending on the outlook. And I like how they said that, because depending on the outlook, depending on the situation, and especially with how wishy-washy things are, you could see why not only people that are emotionally invested could drive themselves crazy, but also why you have to stay so cool, calm, and collect. Impulse buying, panic selling is a real thing. So Commerce Bank analyst Carson Fritch sees silver reaching $26 an ounce in 2022. And that's a positive demand outlook for the USD to rise 26 per troy ounces. Silver would thus also make some ground against gold. This is not unusual. Silver normally follows gold. So, and I like this part right here. He goes, Hines said that silver should be viewed as an inflation hedge next year, but added many traders don't see it that way. Its industrial uses in the electronic sector are relatively closely linked to some of the drivers of inflation that we're seeing at the moment. It has a place in an inflation-protected portfolio, but I don't think investors generally view it that way, but it deserves to have a spot in there. Silver is quintessential in inflationary metal. And I do think that silver should be accumulated by everyone. Everyone can buy silver, but not everyone knows about silver. And that's why I try to make videos to expand out, bring people in so they have a choice. And I'm convinced that in this bull market, there's going to be another corner attempted at the silver market. And that's definitely true. I mean, Wall Street Silver isn't going anywhere. Have 100 and how many members do we have now? 100 and something thousand members, probably close to 200,000 now. and they're only gonna grow, and they're gonna keep doing silver raids. And as silver becomes more scarce, I don't see how that's not going to affect the price. So it's hard to believe that in January 1980, gold to silver ratio was 17 to 1. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that ratio again at some point in the bull market. So if the ratio goes back to 17 to 1, that's putting silver at roughly $250 if gold's at $2,000. In longer term, Garen does not it does not rule out silver climbing to $500 in the decade. Silver plays massive catch up to gold. And if gold gets to $10,000 a decade, ratio goes down 20 to 1, that's $500 silver. It will be the decade of the shortages, and everyone's going to get poor except the people that own physical gold and silver. I mean, how much more, how could you state it better than that? I mean, the proof is in the pudding. There you go, right? Everyone's talking about $100 silver sounds crazy, or a silver pumper, but when you look at the realistic perspective, these are real analysts, right? It makes sense. A decade's a long time, and 10 years ago, silver was $50, if you want to look at it that way. So if gold reaches 10,000, which I could see that, silver reached 500, I could see that, because also when you incorporate the dollar losing its purchasing power, that also makes sense. Back in the day, your grandma or your dad tells you cigarettes were 25 cents a pack. Now cigarettes $11, gas was 50 cents a gallon. Now it's X amount of dollars. You could see how over time, even saying a high price won't mean that much, because what you could buy with that price then is much different than today. So I'm going to wrap this video up here. I hope you enjoyed it. If you thought this video was 1, educational, 2, informational, 3, at least entertaining, make sure to hit the like button. Please subscribe. Like the video if you want to be blessed with silver next year. And we're going to kick it off. Hope you enjoyed this video. Check out the other 2 videos I posted today. Thanks for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.